Sorry, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Just so everybody knows, this is being recorded, so, and after this is all done, this presentation, this recording will go up on our website, so if you're not taking notes, that's fine. All this information will be uploaded on video, so you'll be able to go reference it later, go back to it, and see everything that we discussed. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna introduce our team, myself. My name is Gary Rosenberg. I'm one of the procurement agents over here with the Town of Davie.
I'm Kiana. Kiana Athos, sorry. I'm a college intern. And good morning, my name is Marcella. I am another procurement agent here. And we have Jenna over here at the end. I'm a procurement coordinator.
All right, no. One more thing I like to do is we can just go around the room and each of you guys can introduce yourself, what company you work for, and kind of what field you guys are in for your company. This was something back over here.
Well, I guess from a 5+, so we do a large record 13, a large record.
My name is Scott Joseph. I'm with Americheck USA. We're right here in the town of Davie for over 25 years. So we process employment background checks.
Okay.
So we'd love to work with your HR people and do your background checks. Thank you.
Okay.
My name is Peter Rodriguez with 350 by the emergency portable generators, portable air compressors, rental equipment, light towers, all emergency areas. Do a lot for the responding disaster companies, and we would like to work with the town of Davie. So that's why I'm here.
All right.
Where's it go?
Oh, okay.
Hi, my name is Milton Machado. I am with Plus Design, working in design and construction administration for multifamily residential projects and retail projects in Florida.
I'm David Arenas, with that finished road covering. We just do commercial flooring, whether it be for offices, healthcare, IT, specialty.
Eileen Boone with Compian. We do playgrounds, outdoor fitness, servicing, profession.
Pedro, this is Rosie. We're from Diamond Tools International. We supply construction companies with diamonds and construction equipment to cut, to drill, stuff like that.
And then, sorry, if you guys are online, feel free to put what your company name is and what you do in the chat.
Olive Synergy is here. We do AC contracting.
Thank you.
This is Laura with ASAP Rust. We mitigate irrigation rust control issues with sprinkler systems.
Good morning. My name is Zelda Diaz. We are JLMD Window and Door Installation. We are Division 8 for Impact Windows and Doors.
My name is Dennis Collado, and we, with Hill Manufacturing, we manufacture industrial maintenance supplies.
I haven't gotten any. Oh, I just got one.
Good morning. I'm Greg with Inspired Hope. We provide staffing services for entry level and janitorial work.
Sarah Davenport says they do traffic and mobility consultants, transportation planning, and traffic engineering / design. That's all I got on the chat so far.
All right. Thank you, guys. So we'll go ahead and get started. So this is an intro for, for the Town of Davie doing business with us. So in the future, you'll be able to do it a little easier. We're going to show you our processes, what we do. We're going to go through a whole lot of information as we go through. If you have any questions, just feel free to ask. First, Town of Davie is a historical Western themed town. It's also known as the Cowboy Town. So if you guys see us out in any, trade shows, things like that, we always have our cowboy hats on, stuff like that. Our merchandise is always, like little stuff, horses, things like that. So it's always fun stuff. We home nearly 107,000 residents We live across 35 square miles. Also, if you from around here, you see people still riding horses on Orange Drive, cool things like that. So I'm from New York. We're not used to seeing people on horses and things. So it's very different, living out here around Town of Davie. A few things. We've had a bunch of awards based on our policies, procedures, best practices. We like to keep transparency on a lot of things. So we've been awarded for the past 8 consecutive years the Award for Excellence in Public Procurement through the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials, FAPA. So that's one of our groups that we're part of, and they assign these awards every year. We've also gotten the award, one of 2 local government agencies in Broward County that has been awarded the accreditation for quality public procurement departments. So that's, again, based on all our policies that we put in, our best practices, our procedures, how we do business. Our procurement office here, we take procurement very seriously. We make sure that everything is transparent. Everybody knows what's going on. If there's, a solicitation that something happens that goes awry, we will cancel that and we'll start all over. We just want to make sure everybody has a fair process and everybody can see what that fair process is. In fiscal year 2024, last year, the Town of Davie created 497 solicitations, services for goods and contracts in our community. So almost 500 solicitations and contracts that we've done with the town or for the town. So that's a lot, just to give you an example of last year. And our year goes from the end of September, or I'm sorry, from October 1st to the end of September. So that's our fiscal year for the Town of Davie.
So one thing that I want to add there, actually, the second and third level in regards to our awards, as Gary was saying, we got those awards based on our policies and procedures and our evaluation. So we do have a lot of pride in that. And it also did state, as of 2024, we had that many contracts. So far for this year, we actually have over 500 contracts. So obviously, they continue to grow moving forward. And actually on the side here, you can see our departments and divisions. So this is broken up between 3 different agents. And we do work very closely with our departments. We handle invoices for them, contracting. We're hands-on with everything. So if you ever need help or have any questions with a specific department, you can always find on our website, which we'll show you later, who's the agent for that department, and they can kind of guide you on what you need or help you answer any questions that you might have.
All right, so the main topics we're going to discuss with today: solicitation of thresholds, the differences between those thresholds. On the Town of Davie procurement homepage, we're going to discuss open bid or OpenGov, which is our new electronic bidding platform. Active solicitations, future solicitation opportunities, insurance, additional requirements, vendor registration. We use PaymentWorks. That's our system to make sure that you guys register with us. Maintaining your contracts, and then any common mistakes. So our solicitations and thresholds is different. So the first one we have is anything that goes from 0 or 1 penny to $5,000. There's a minimum of 1 quote required. There's no contract required for that. Our departments can go directly to any vendor to go ahead and buy that. So, it can go anywhere from dollies, electrical cords, flagpoles, things of that nature. Things that are generally not contracted or not on a contract. They can go to a vendor, they can get 1 quote from you guys, and they have a procurement card that they can buy that with directly, or they can do an invoice batch if you guys are already in the system, and you guys can invoice them. So that's our first one. The second one is our informal threshold, which is between $5,001, $35,000. We have 2 processes for that: our invitation to quote and our request for proposal. So our invitation to quote is a sealed bid process through OpenGov. What we do is we'll put out the process. Our departments will give us the specification. We upload it into our program, which again, you'll see a lot more of this later through a presentation about signing up for OpenGov. But you go into OpenGov, it will go out, we put in commodity codes, which you guys would sign up for through OpenGov. And then it essentially blasts email everybody that solicitation that falls under that commodity code that we select. So if it's, for an example, if it's for AC repair, we type in, air conditioning, and then all the codes for air conditioning comes up, and then we select which ones we want to send that out to, and it'll go out to all of them. Then the other one is a request for proposal. So that's more of, we want you guys to propose to us, something that we want. I don't have any examples off the top of my head.
So for example, if we're not sure how to exactly put together a price table, we'll put out information on what we need, and that'll give you a chance to propose to us what you could give us as a solution. So that would be a request for proposal.
Right, and then our third one is anything that's over $35,000 in one penny. It's our formal thresholds. That's our formal bidding process. We have our invitation to bid. We have our request for proposals, and then the request for qualification. The invitation to bid, that's going to be, again, we're going to send all the information out. We're going to have our pricing tables. We're going to go out to you guys through OpenGov. All this will actually go out to you guys through OpenGov. And then you guys will bid on OpenGov. We'll get it back, and then we'll decide from there who we're going to go with. The request for proposal is the same. We're going to throw out the information. You propose to us pricing and how that would work. And then we have our request for qualifications. That's going to be if there's a job that has certain qualifications. If we need a specific lawyer, for example, that has a certain qualification, or I don't know, architecture. Yeah, so architecture, engineers. So we would request that certain qualifications. You guys would all send us those qualifications, and then we would base that off the qualifications.
Yeah, request for qualifications is typically done for like professional services, like the architects and engineers in the law, legal related things. It's initially not based on the dollar amount like a bid would be. But first that you meet the qualifications and they're shortlisted, and then, pricing is negotiated after that. So it's a certain, like a specific type of solicitation done for those services.
And then for any of our informal or formal, those have to be sent out to a minimum of 3 vendors. We obviously send out to a lot more than that, but we try to get back at least 3 quotes for those. Obviously, not all the time everybody's going to send us back information, but as long as we send it out to a minimum of 3, and again, we send it out to a lot of vendors, so we always send it well over. We usually send out, I know, minimum probably 50 vendors, usually depending on what the commodity code is.
So just to clarify, in case you have a little, you're unsure about the different categories here. So for the first section here, there's no contract, there's no bidding process. So our code says that the department, for example, like Public Works, which is one of my departments, if they have a smaller job, they actually have to attempt to get a quotation from 3 different agencies or 3 different vendors, sorry. So the minimum requirement is 1 response. So even though they sent 3 and 2 people don't respond, they just got 1, they could move forward with that 1. So again, there's no bidding process for that. And then the other 2, there is a sealed bidding process. And that also calls for piggyback contracts as well, which is something we'll dive a little deeper into down the road. But pretty much if there's another agency that has a contract for something, we could utilize it, and the categories would still fall as informal or informal.
Do you have a question over there?
Yes, sir. So per se, like we're vending for Fort Lauderdale. We can take a ride from Davie Town with Fort Lauderdale.
Correct. So there's actually a section here where we'll go more deeper into it. But the fact that you already have a contract with another agency is pretty much your key. Because realistically, a lot of departments, for example, my department, Public Works, which is a high using department, they typically go find piggyback contracts, which is what we refer them as. So in that way, especially for like a general thing, like someone might mention there's playgrounds, and I heard like, what else I heard, but there's a lot of common services and common products that a lot of cities use. So if you already have a contract with Fort Lauderdale, we could actually check a specific platform, which we'll dive more into down the road here, but we could utilize that contract. So that kind of saves us and the department time, and that's usually where they try to go to before they even put out a whole solicitation. So piggybacks, we'll get more into that unless anyone has any additional questions on this slide. And again, the chat is open. If anyone has questions, they could drop it in there as well.
No questions?
So on this next slide here, I made like a quick video to show you the Town of Davie website and how to navigate to the procurement page. So we have a dedicated page here. You see some sub pages here on the right-hand side, or sorry, the left-hand side. And this is actually going to be your go-to for many reasons. And we will go through some of the most important ones. So as I mentioned, this is pretty much your hub with all your helpful information. And we'll actually jump into the second tab here. So the second tab, as you can see, it shows you Town of Davie OpenGov bids and RFPs. So as we mentioned throughout this presentation, we currently post our solicitations on OpenGov. So before OpenGov, we were using DemandStar and Civic Plus, which was our town website. So as of June 2024, we've moved over to OpenGov. So for you to go onto OpenGov, I have here a little presentation that shows you how easy it is. You click on that tab, and it literally gives you the steps on where to begin. So as you go ahead and click that step, you'll create your account, and you'll actually get an email to activate your account. And again, this is actually free to you guys. It's free to the vendors. So the agencies are the ones that actually pay for their subscription to be able to solicit contracts for you. So I just gave you a brief example of how quick and easy it is to put your information and create your account. So one of the main things that I want to bring to your attention when you're creating this account is this is like your main profile for your company. So this is like your Facebook profile that represents you and your company. So one of the most important things I want to say is make sure your information is correct. Make sure that you don't have misspellings or you don't have wrong contact information, because this is where we will go to look at your company information. So in the next slide, we will actually show you, once you actually create your account, it will give you a tutorial on how to navigate through the account. So it's very user-friendly, and as you can see, as you respond to a solicitation, you'll have your responses. It says following. So a little down the road, I'll show you how you can follow a project. So you'll actually get notifications on when a status change or when something gets uploaded, and also your responses. So again, you can navigate through this, and on the bottom right-hand side is actually a little bubble where you can ask any questions. So one thing we love about OpenGov is they're very responsive and they're very helpful. So again, if you have any questions along the way, they can help you, or you can always contact us, worst case scenario. So over here, I created a little profile for myself, for my company. And as you can see, I added my little logo. And one of the things that's very important that Gary had mentioned earlier was the commodity codes, which you could also see on the bottom, which was the category codes. So the category codes is something that is very helpful because that specifies the type of services and products that you provide. So as Gary was mentioning, when we solicit our contracts, for example, like plumbing, if someone has a plumbing company, we're doing a contract for plumbing, we'll look up keywords that have to do with that contract. So we'll look up water, construction, plumbing. We'll also look for like general contractors, anything that falls in similar categories. So in that way, those people that have selected those categories in their profile get notified. Does that make sense? So aside from that, I want to inform you that think outside the box. So like the example I gave with the plumbing, even though that you're kind of like a smaller, more of like a subcontractor kind of company, I would definitely recommend you to think larger. So think of construction, think of building structures and similar projects where you could fit in as a sub as well. So if, for example, like right now we have our new town hall that is being constructed. Maybe you provide the doors and locks, or you provide, could someone else give me another example from their company of something that they could provide for our town hall? The software, anything else?
Emergency backup power.
Yeah, exactly. So these are things that maybe they wouldn't we wouldn't necessarily probably put out a specific solicitation for that. But as I mentioned, think outside the box. So we're building a town hall. So maybe you should put in categories that could reach out to those. You could reach out to those vendors as well, like the main guys. So like right now, the awarded vendor was Kaufman Lynn. So they are in charge of doing our new town hall. So if someone provides plumbing, if someone provides doors, furniture, they would actually, it would be best if they contact Kaufman Lynn. And then that way they could see, hey, do you already have a subcontractor for these things? Do you already have furniture? Do you already have flooring? I know someone said they had a flooring company, and you could actually get in
Through them.
through them, exactly. So
You can see the list of people that are awarded.
yes, of course. So that's one thing about OpenGov, that everything is open to the public. We do make everything available, from our sign-in sheets for pre-bids, from our bid opening report, the final award, everything is open. So even if maybe that doesn't necessarily fall under you, it kind of does if you really think outside the box. So that's why I think that it's important for vendors to put additional category codes or commodity codes that they could benefit from. And again, on this section here, this was just me completing my profile. And when you create your business profile, put your W form. Try to put as much information as possible, because when we're doing our administrative review, we look at these things. So, and not only us, but project managers as well. And one thing that I came across, like for other documents, you could put your licenses. You could put anything that will benefit your company. Again, this is like your resume, your profile on how to present yourself. So in this video here, I am showing you that we actually have a live screen on our town website that shows you bids that we currently have active. So again, this is where we were on the second tab that showed you step 1, create your account. And we're going to get into step number 2 and step number 3. But again, you could actually filter here. You could see current contracts. You could see closed contracts. And after you create your OpenGov account, it's actually recommended to subscribe to the Town of Davie. So when you subscribe to the Town of Davie, you are pretty much following us. So you will be able to see all of our bids that we solicit. And that way you have an opportunity to review it and also to submit. But again, as I mentioned, the town hall scenario, if you see something that you could possibly work in as a GC, as a subcontractor, you probably want to follow that contract, which we'll look at in just a second. And you could also clarify how you want to be notified, if only all opportunities or whatnot, as you've seen there. So over here, I'm going to show you how you're going to follow a contract. So this specific contract, I selected it, and this is just a preview of how the information is brought out to you. And as you can see, I'm following the contract. So this means that when any of the status is changed, when any documents are uploaded, I will be notified. So I'll be notified when it gets awarded. And if I want to contact that awarded vendor, all that information will be available later there. So you could always contact them. Obviously, their contact information and whatnot will be available. And just to give you a quick overview, just to show you the tabs here, it's fairly clean and to the point. You can even ask any questions, which is the second to last section there. Even if you're not bidding on the contract, you can always ask questions as well.
Does anybody have any questions on OpenGov?
And again, this is free to you guys, and we're no longer using DemandStar. There are other platforms out there that you guys possibly use, like, is anybody else using any other platforms? I know there's Bonfire. What platform are you using? Yeah, so again, this is free to you. You could sign up. And again, these steps are available on our procurement site. Any other questions at this time? Yeah?
We'll only use this for the last two meeting process and formal process that we did last slide. But from 0 to
Correct.
5,000.
So this is where we post our competitive contracts. So again, this would be like informal and formal contracts. So anything that's over $5,000, we are soliciting it, and we will be publishing it here. And obviously, you want to keep in mind of when the due date is, and also there will be a deadline for Q&As. So there is a deadline as well. So time is of the essence. Definitely don't wait till last minute to look at something in case you have any questions.
And you also need to make sure you look at it, because sometimes they'll do pre-bid meetings that are mandatory. And if you miss those, you miss your chance to be able to bid on that solicitation. So always make sure that you guys, as soon as you see that, look at it right away to see what mandatory things might pop up that you'll have to take care of.
So just to add on to that, there are going to be some projects more like demolition. There might be some construction that obviously will require a pre-bid, a mandatory pre-bid. So obviously, since it's mandatory, you have to show up. If you don't show up, you don't have the opportunity to submit a bid. So one of the good things is, as I mentioned, the scenario with a town hall, you could still come to the pre-bid, even if you're not going to be one of the main people submitting submitting a bid. Because that's your chance to network. That's your opportunity to meet the GCs. That's your chance to let them know what you could offer them. So just to help you think outside the box, maybe it doesn't exactly pertain to what you have, but you just got to think a little deeper.
We do have a few questions
Yes.
online. The first one, are the RFQs and RFPs based on a lowest bidder standpoint?
So for the RFPs and RFQs, there typically is a negotiation process and a review committee. So depending on the department that is requesting the solicitation, they will be the one who will be reviewing the responses and seeing what will be the best outcome for what they're looking for. So typically in these contracts, it doesn't necessarily go by lowest bidder. But of course, we are looking for responsible and responsive. Jenna, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, you're correct. It doesn't go by the lowest bid, which is what an ITB or an ITQ does. It goes by as long as you meet the, standards of the item, that we're looking for. It would be the lowest price is, the successful awarded person. For RFPs and RFQs, typically price is one component, but there's other components we look for. Like qualification, there's in each RFP and RFQ, there's actually a list. It's a bulleted list of exactly the evaluation criteria that we take into account. So it's customizable, so it changes depending on the type of solicitation that's being done. But it's very transparent. You can see that list of the bullets of what we're looking for, and usually price is one piece. And they take all those factors into account when they make their final decision.
Okay, another question. Does the Town of Davie recognize MWBE, LDB, and DBE certifications?
No, the town does not. We do not give any preference for those types of businesses. Some agencies do have a scale where they might do that. The only preference that we look for and honor, I guess you could say, is local preference, and that we have specific requirements, and it's included in our terms and conditions of our solicitations. We have local preference for Davie and Broward vendors.
So it's actually mentioned in one of the upcoming slides. So we'll dive a little deeper into that. What was the next question?
Does the OpenGov platform track my insurance certificates and send out notifications prior to expiring so I can upload a new certificate?
So that's actually part of the vendor registration payment works process. So we'll dive into that in the next few slides, but OpenGov specifically is for you to look for solicitations and respond to solicitations. And something I didn't mention is if you see something that you're interested in, you can actually draft a response. And you could start working on it, you know, get some information, whatever, and you could dive back into it later. Was there any other questions?
Yep, one more. Do you follow a point score system to award a bid?
So for the ITBs and ITQs, as Jenna has mentioned, that typically, well, that always is by the lowest price. Obviously, you know, we look for specific qualifications, like if we ask for a license, we need the license. There's certain requirements that we need, but for ITBs and ITQs, it's always the lowest vendor. And then for the RFPs and RFQs, which have the review committee meeting, at the review committee meeting, they go based off a point scale. That's what it's called, correct?
Ordinal ranking.
Ordinal ranking, sorry. So what that is like if there's 3 vendors that submitted, pretty much it's gonna be who's their top vendor, which would be number 1, who's their secondary vendor, number 2, and then the third one, which would be 3. So it doesn't necessarily go off of 100 scale, like I know some agencies do. So we go off of ordinal ranking. So who's their preference and so forth.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry?
that was all.
Okay.
So,
Oh, sorry. In this slide here, I was going to show you guys contracts prior to OpenGov. As I mentioned, we moved over to OpenGov in June 2024. So this is actually a very helpful tool for you that I recommend you to take a look at, because this is where we posted, like everything's on there, all of our old contracts. So for example, if you want to submit a bid for lawn, or if you're curious about lawn maintenance, you could literally do Control F and you could search anything that has lawn. And another example here I gave was roof. So for roof, you could literally find all of our old contracts that we've done roofing for. So the reason why I'm sharing with you why this is an advantage tool that you could use is because obviously these contracts come to an end. You know, most likely they're probably project-based or they're going to be reoccurring contracts. So if you see that we just put out a contract for laser grading infields, you can check back on here on our old contracts to see if, you know, if we've done it previously, and you can see what people have responded previously. You can see your possible competition on this upcoming contract. So it's definitely an advantage. And just to give you an idea on how the contracts are titled. So the first set of letters, as you can see over here, like this one is an ITQ. So that's an ITQ contract. The next set, for example, here is JA. So that's the initials of the person who initiated it. In this case was Jenna Alberts. And then the next set would be the year. So this was 2023. As you can see, this was also 2023, 2023, and so forth. And then the next digit is just a sequence of contracts that it comes in. So if you ever want to look up old contracts, you could see even what we did from 2019, 2018, but just so you know which are the most recent ones. Was there anything you wanted to add to this, Gary?
no, when you look at those, just remember that, you know, there's a lot of information inside these: expiration dates, how much the awarding bid on, how much everybody else bid on, responses are in there, our bid tabulation, our bid opening. So all that information, again, is in all this stuff. So as we go through, you know, it can help you place a bid in the future by looking at what was already done, you know, what our bidders already did and what they did to win those bids.
So that's actually going to be in our next slide here. And our next slide will show you an example of me actually selecting one of these older contracts, just to give you a visual idea on what's available for you. So again, everything is public records, everything is available. If you're looking for something specific, of course you could contact one of us, but then again, everything is here on our town website. So this is just all the basic information of this specific contract. And at the bottom, we have related documents. So the first document is the original solicitation, in case you were curious on what the terms were, what the conditions were. And you can see there was a mandatory pre-bid. So you can actually see who went to that pre-bid. Like I mentioned before, maybe you want to contact one of those GCs even for other future projects. We even do post our bid opening report and our final tabulation, which is their pricing that they submitted. So like I was mentioning to you, a lot of our contracts, depending on the service, are reoccurring. So you could always come back and find a similar contract to what we're currently soliciting, like for lawn maintenance. You could go back, look at the old lawn maintenance contract, see what those people submitted, see what their pricing is, so you have an idea on what you should possibly submit this time around. And you do have the award letter, and in the award letter, it'll also inform you when this contract will end. So again, you could use this tool in this section here, because if you find a contract and something that you could provide a service for, check out the award letter, see how much longer this contract's for, because again, you won't be notified when a contract is public until we publish it on OpenGov. But you could always contact one of us in regards to when a contract is ending, if that's something that you're interested in, providing services for.
Good. So the next section we're going to go into is building your toolkit. This is going to help you place your bids and information that we look at when we do this. So the first thing is you want to be active on SunBiz or your state business registration site. So, if you're registered with the state of Florida, SunBiz is one of the websites that we look at to make sure you guys are active and, there's nothing wrong. If you're outside of the state, we look at your state business registration if there is. Obviously, you're going to create your OpenGov account. That's going to make sure all your information is up to date. And that's obviously where you're going to go back into to apply for your bid. Know your competition. I know that's one thing that Marcella keeps saying, which is it's important. If you look at the previous bids, you can at least get an idea of what people are bidding on for these solicitations. Now, granted, it might be years ago, inflation, tariffs, whatever may be causing you to, raise your bid a little bit this time around, but at least you'll have an idea of what was bid, so you can look now and be competitive when you're bidding with everybody else. Contact your client references. Ensure they're still available. Make sure they are saying nice things about you. You don't want to have a reference that doesn't think that you did good services, or we can't contact, or is just not available or not responsive, because that's going to be a reflection on you guys. If you put them as a reference and we try to contact them and they're just not available ever, then obviously that's going to be a strike that, well, we can't get a hold of their references, so that we'll look at it in that way. We're talking about COIs, or certificate of insurance. You have to make sure that's up to date. When we start going into paperwork, we're going to discuss a lot of common areas and things that we look at for the COI or your certificate of insurance. We do require that you upload one with your proposal, and then if you are awarded, we have specific items, which we'll show you in a little while, that have to be put on your certificate of insurance before we can process the award. And then some of your company overview documents, your W-9 form, your company contacts. Company contacts is really important. Whoever's placing that bid, or whoever you want to have that contact, their email, your company's address, phone number. If there's an error on that, we need to contact you. We can't, then we move on to the next one, because you obviously can't get hold of them. Your business statements, your org chart, any equipment list that you have owned or leased, because there are some bids that are required to post that, hey, we own or lease this equipment for lawn care or for construction, and we may ask for those items. So if you already have these things in there, that's less than you'll have to create later on. Work history, recently completed project, services with images, resumes of key staff members that are related to specific proposals or bids. Sometimes we're required to have certain licenses, things like that. So you'll have to provide the name of the person, their license, or if it's having after your company. We don't want just someone who's not really working for your company but holding a license but not doing business with you guys really. So make sure that they're actually attached to your company and doing work for that. Subcontractor information. If you have any subcontractors, we'll need a lot of their information, but you'll have to provide that. And then any copies of licenses, certificates for primes and subs.
So just to add on to that, obviously, as I mentioned before, creating your open gov account is kind of like, you know, like it represents you, your company, and something that I'd like to inform you of, once you receive bids back, the agents and I, or depending whose department it is, we do administrative review, you know, we make sure you have everything we need. And then we actually share this administrative review with the departments. So whoever's the project manager, we'll give them access, to see everything you responded with. So your references, that's a huge key because they're gonna be the ones contacting those references and seeing how you guys did. And this is not just work related, this is also billing, this is just being responsive and responsible. There's so many key factors here. So aside from, you know, having your open gov account with, you know, supporting information of your company, this is additional documents or information you could add under other documents, which I showed you earlier. One of the things that, like Gary mentioned, the equipment list. So for example, if we're looking for lawn maintenance, let us know you have the big heavy duty stuff to do what we need. We don't want to hire someone, they pull up with their little lawnmower and a goat, you know? So let us know that you have what we need to get the project done. And another thing, you know, your work history. I know that you've mentioned before, one of you guys that you guys have worked with another agency. That's obviously a plus. So aside from them as a reference, you could let us know that you have or had those active contracts with them. And, you know, it just, this toolkit is to help build your company and let us know, everyone else know that, you know, what you have on the table. One of the main things that I came across is license issues. I have had a few companies in the past that submitted licenses and they're not even active, you know, so we definitely check these licenses. We've had fraud, you know, people submit licenses and we're not even legit. So even if we don't ask for a license as a requirement, send it anyways, you know, and add it. Because again, this is like your profile. This is showing that maybe you didn't ask for it, but I got it. Do it, I'm professional, and I can do what you're looking for. Does anyone have any questions in regards to the toolkit? Again, this is not necessarily required, but this is just additional information to help you present yourself better.
Then one other thing, I want to go back a little bit to the review committees that someone asked a question about. So when we do our review committees for a bid or an RFP or RFQ, those are all videotaped and then or recorded, and then we post those online as well with our bids. So previous bids, current bids. So once those are done, you can go online, you can actually see the review committee process and how that works. So the whole thing, they'll be discussing it, and so that all is posted online. Just want to let everybody know.
So this toolkit will kind of be more of a, you know, if you're doing an RFP and RFQ, this would be more, you know, definitely a 10 out of 10 if you provide more than what we asked for, because the project managers are reviewing everyone's company's information right there on the table. Like for example, we had an RFP, I believe, for Christmas lighting. So we looked at what everyone could provide us, what it looks like, you know, how many people they have working, because, you know, we don't want to put in a work order and then you guys can't get to it 2-3 months out. So just to give you guys some pointers here on good things to mention and include in your toolkit and your submission.
All right, so this is our Supplier Central. So this is our website that you can go to for all the tools and stuff that we provide. So there's vendor requirement guides on here. You have a fillable W9. You can do our policy and procedure manuals on here, our general terms and conditions for our purchase orders, our procurement code of ordinances, strategic plan documents. You can find how-tos, where the vendor training sessions, and then you can do your open gov on here. We have online auctions that we post through here. So anything you want to find that is going to help you with these toolkits, you can look for right here.
So again, this is on where we showed you from the beginning, the procurement homepage, and then here's all your sub pages here. So this is where you'll find all the information. Again, if you need help with guidance, you can give us a call, send us an email, and we'll remind you how to get there. But we make everything available to you, helpful to you, so that way you guys could be better, not only to provide services for us, but also other agencies.
Anybody have any questions so far before we proceed? All right. So now we're going to go into a vendor registration. So we use PaymentWorks. PaymentWorks is our vendor registration that we use to register for all your stuff.
So just to add to there, a lot of people, they send us emails, they call us like, hey, how can we register with the Town of Davie? Because we know other agencies, they just allow you to submit papers and I don't know what they do with it exactly, but we only send our PaymentWorks vendor registration if you are awarded a bid. So if you are awarded a bid, that's when you would be able to register with the town. So I did provide an example here. Once you are awarded a bid, the procurement agent will send you an email with the award recommendation and will inform you, hey, you know, you've got awarded a bid. This is all the information in regards to the award recommendation and pretty much sending you the invite. So one of the things that we want to inform you is that our vendor registration process has changed a lot, because previously, before OpenGov as well, we would just have you fill out all your information on some paper, submit it, and that's it. And we would just vet it ourselves. So the reason why we went to PaymentWorks, it is free to vendors, but it actually is secured. So it's a secured platform to prevent fraud, and it has so many helpful functions aside from registering with us. So somebody did ask in regards to COIs. So one of the requirements when you complete your vendor registration is submitting your COI, which is your certificate of insurance. So somebody asked if they'll get notified if their certificate of insurance is expired. So I believe it actually does send you automatic notifications if your certificate of insurance is expired. So then you'll be able to just upload it, very simple. There's a lot of great functions for PaymentWorks. One of the functions in it is that once you submit an invoice to the project manager, you'll actually see when it's been paid, because there is a payments tab in there. And also you have the ability to sign up for ACH. So this is a requirement. If you want to do business with the town, if you are awarded as a vendor, you have to go through PaymentWorks. And we do have a specific person that reviews this information, which is Laura. She's our procurement specialist. She's actually online right now. But has anybody used PaymentWorks or with any other agencies? Okay, no problem. Well, it's good for you, okay? It'll help your company avoid fraud, that's for sure, because we definitely came across a few fishy situations, which has encouraged us to move to this platform. Do we have any questions in regards to PaymentWorks?
So when it comes to your COIs, a lot of the common mistakes that we find when we submit is, in the contract details subscription, you have to put the Town of Davie, the contract number for the one that you bid for. A lot of people don't put that. The certificate holder has to be for the Town of Davie as well. A lot of times that's left out. And then the other one is making sure we're additionally insured, whether it be general liability, auto, or workers' comp. So those are the really three main things that people leave out. And you would actually be surprised, like we send out emails with all this information, highlights, like arrows, please put X's here, please put this statement here. And then we always get like one that's done and then two other blocks aren't filled out. And then we have to send it back and go, all right, guys, please send out the other two blocks, fill out one, submit it, or whatever the case, So a lot of times the COIs are the hardest thing, one when we're doing it for the awarding bid and in PaymentWorks. So those are, the COI is one of the most important things that we need, because we can't do business with you if you don't have insurance. You have to be covered, make sure if something happens in the town, we're covered, you're covered. Obviously, last minute bid submissions make it difficult. Verify your responses prior to submissions. So just again, make sure you're re-looking through everything and just double checking it. Make sure, as we talked about, you go through any mandatory pre-bid meetings. look early. So if there's anything mandatory, you're there or you're presenting it, give yourself enough time to, one, ask any questions that you have, because the questions will generally, the Q&A will generally end prior to the bid end to give us time to be able to answer those questions. So make sure you're looking at all those primary dates. When is it due? You obviously don't want to be submitting something last second, because that's when most likely you'll leave something out. And then paperwork, we do bank verification. The employee must verify the bank information provided during verification call, and cell phone numbers are not publicly linked to the company and are not accepted. So paperwork you have to put your bank information if you're going to do ACH. ACH is going to be paid directly to your bank account by sending you a check. So that's something our paperwork does, but they do have to verify your bank to make sure that there's no fraud or it's not going to someone else instead of you. So that's kind of one of the important.
So one of the things I want to mention here for certificate of insurance, as Gary had mentioned earlier, this is one of the requirements that we're requesting once you submit your bid. In your bid submission, we do specify what we need, but just to inform you, if you don't have the threshold amount that we need, you don't have to hurry and get it right away just to submit a bid. So if you don't have $1 million coverage right now today, you can still submit your contract or your bid submission. And if you do get awarded, then you could go ahead and try to arrange to increase your insurance. So just to inform you, and also in regards to the certificate of insurance, the reason why we have it up here as number one is because that honestly is the biggest downfall that a lot of vendors have. It seems very simple. As Gary mentioned, we provide literally a PDF highlighted document with what we need, but there's a lot of vendors that just don't get it. So the reason why we added up here is because we don't want you to be one of those vendors. Because again, one of the things that we look for is if you're responsive and responsible. So if you can't get, if you can't double check that your insurance company is giving us correctly, that's already it's already a flag for us. I'm like, how did they not verify this? And we're over here doing business with them, a few $1,000s. In regards to last minute bid submissions. So again, that's why I recommend you guys to follow the town on OpenGov so you get notified when we publish something. And definitely take note of when the deadline is, take note if there's mandatory pre-bids, because last minute bid submissions, it's a no-go. There's been people that have sent us emails and sorry, if you don't submit, that's it. Like there's nothing we could do. And we just have to keep it rolling. And one thing that you could do, it doesn't necessarily always work, but in the question and answers, if the bid is still open, you can always ask for an extension. It doesn't hurt to ask in case you need more time to do some research. It's obviously not guaranteed, but just to let you know, if you need an extension, which is obviously not something that we recommend, why not ask? We're open to all questions. And also in regards to the next one, for verifying your bid response prior to submission. We've had a lot of vendors that have submitted bids to us, which looks like they provided the same documents or information that they've submitted for another bid or another agency. So we have received documentation that said, oh yeah, these services are for Fort Lauderdale. So it's clearly that, it's little mistakes that we catch and it just doesn't look good on your company. We also see that people refer to us as the city of Davie rather than the town of Davie. So those are little minor things. That's why it's always good to verify your bid response prior to submission. Always have somebody else double check it, because again, one little minor thing could get you disqualified, especially on the bid table itself, especially if I've had an instance where somebody forgot to put an extra zero in their bid response, so they put $170 when they meant to put $1,700. That's a big difference. $170 to $170. That's crazy. So just double check your stuff. And again, in regards to the mandatory pre-bids, even if you personally can't come, have somebody else come from your company. As long as your company name is on that paper, you can submit.
we
Anyone have
haven't-
any questions?
If we haven't already mentioned, COIs, they are important. Please double check that.
Any other questions in regards to common mistakes?
Alright. We're gonna go over some common terms that we use a lot. So one, for our local preference, we have our local Davie vendor, which is a person or business entity which has maintained a permanent place of business with full-time employees within the town limits for a minimum of 6 months prior to the date of issuance of a bid or proposal solicitation. You get a 5% evaluation credit. For a local Broward County vendor, a person or business entity which has maintained a permanent place of business with full-time employees within Broward County limits for a minimum of 6 months prior to the date of issuance of bid or proposal solicitation, you get a 2.5% valuation credit.
So Gary, just to add to that, Jenna had mentioned earlier that we have like a local preference. So of course, if you're in the town of Davie or in Broward County, as Gary just read now, you do have kind of a benefit. So for, just to give you an example, if there's two vendors that bid fairly close together, if it's within 5%, we'll actually contact those two vendors and we will start a BAFO. So a BAFO is a best and final offer. So we'll contact those two vendors and say, hey, look, you know, this is the situation. And you actually have the opportunity to try to give us a better rate. Jenna, would you like to add to that in regards to BAFO?
No, you explained it pretty good. The main thing is the Davie, if you see on the slide there, if a Davie vendor is within 5% of a non-Davie vendor, that's when it would apply, or 2.5%, or than 2.5% because you're a Broward vendor versus a non-Broward vendor, that's when it would apply. So it doesn't happen a whole lot, 2.5% and 5% is really small, but when it does, it means a lot.
Yes, I've only done one BAFO since I've been here in the past 2 years, but it does happen.
We do have a question, sorry.
Sorry, we got some questions.
What is an evaluation credit?
So the evaluation credit is if you, as Jen just said, if you fall within a certain percentage, so for the town of Davie, if you're within 5% of a non-town of Davie total bid, then we'll allow you, we'll present you with a best and final offer that you can submit it. But you have to be within 5% of that. If you're a Broward County, you have to be within 2.5%. Hopefully that answers your question and you understand.
Were there any other questions in regards to local preference? Is anybody here in Davie? Does anyone have a business in Davie? Okay, that's great.
So then some other terms that we have piggybacking and cooperative purchasing. So piggybacking is a form of intergovernmental cooperative purchasing. So if, you know, another town or entity has a contract, we can utilize that contract for the, you know, we have Pavilion, which is one of our websites that we can use that shows us a lot of these contracts that are out there for us to be able to use. Then you have cooperative purchasing, which is the town provides the usage and quantity information to a lead agency or town to get better volume and pricing. So there will be a bunch of towns that get together and we'll provide one of them as a lead agency with all the information, and then they'll bid on behalf of all the towns, and then we can try and get better pricing that way. So if you understand the difference, it's just one, we're doing it as a group. The other one is we're just using someone else's contract that's already out. Does anybody have any questions on piggybacks or cooperative purchasing? Anything you want to add on that?
So yes, yes.
I've got a question. We have a contract with City of Pompano Beach. However, it wasn't done through a bidding process or through a contract. With our services, it didn't meet that threshold of doing a formal bid, let's say, but we won the bid, worked with them for 10 years. Would you still piggyback off of something like that?
Great question, and it depends on the agency. But our town of Davie's code is that we're only allowed to piggyback competitively solicited contracts. So we wouldn't be able to, but other agencies most likely will. We've actually run into a lot of agencies asking for our contracts, and we're like, are you sure you can piggyback this? And they're like, yeah. And so it really depends on the code and like the policies and procedures of the different agencies, and they all change. But we're only allowed to piggyback if it was competitively solicited.
Yes, we utilize the contract to agreement a lot. Are you? So just to inform you, to give you more of an idea on piggybacking, so this usually is, first of all, if you have a contract with another government agency, that's a key. That's a key right there, as I mentioned earlier, because especially if it's for like a general service, like for playground equipment, which we actually do have a piggyback contract for that. So if Pompano was looking for the tents and the slides and everything, as I mentioned, our department typically, or our departments will typically try to find a piggyback to avoid going through the whole process. So try to get your foot in somewhere. And Gary had mentioned Pavilion. So Pavilion is actually a platform which is where it actually shows a whole bunch of contracts from different agencies across the board, which our departments go on Pavilion to see if there's any contracts that we could utilize. So I know someone had mentioned that they have a contract already with another city. So if it's a general thing that we could possibly utilize, we will check it out, look at the terms, look at the pricing and see if that's something we can utilize. But we do have a process to utilize those other agency contracts. So we do have our own contract routing summary form. What else do we include, Jenna?
It's really what we do. It depends on the agency. It's becoming more common, but we have a piggyback agreement that we sign with the vendor, just so we're both in agreement. And it's in writing, yes, we're using this other agency's contract. We are going by those terms and conditions of whatever was in that contract, just so we're all on the same page and it's in writing. That way down the line, you're like, I don't know what contract you're talking about with Fort Lauderdale, you know? So it's really just, we call it a piggyback agreement, just between, signed between the town and the vendor, saying that we're utilizing it. And then the contract itself is like the exhibit that's attached. And then we just have internal forms, like obviously we would need the COI at that point because you had given the lead agency the COI. We don't have it. So we do have to, there is some paperwork involved in order to piggyback, but it's definitely a quicker process than doing a solicitation from scratch. So that's why it's usually the first thing that departments check, is there a piggyback out there? Yes or no? If no, then okay, I'll do a solicitation.
So I know that she mentioned in regards to like Omnia, that would fall under cooperative contract, correct?
It is considered a cooperative contract, and sometimes it's kind of it gets to a gray area sometimes, because a lot of times cooperative and piggybacks are kind of used synonymously. But it is technically considered a cooperative. It's a nationwide contract that's used. Those Omni and Sourcewell and different contracts are used by hundreds of people around the country.
Notice that municipalities, a lot of them recently are issuing piggyback contracts for the agreement. So we've had to send a lot of piggybacks for Omnia, even though it's a cooperative.
Yeah,
But I guess it's just.
it is, and depending on the funding they're using. For example, we've heard, just because we all share stories and stuff, you know, if you have a grant related something or something with FEMA, they want to see something tying you with that vendor. So a piggyback agreement would be clutch in those situations, versus just going by word. Yeah, we're using it, we don't really have anything in writing between us. So it's really a cautionary thing. And like I said, there's not usually much legal stuff that it's like, oh, we're trying to throw in all our terms and conditions. We're just really just like, yes, we're all in agreement, we're using this.
So if you do have a contract with Omnia or Sourcewell, they usually initiate contracts that are general so that other people could use. So they kind of are helpful to other agencies. So that's something that I recommend you guys to look into, Sourcewell, Omnia. I know there's a few other platforms. Jenna, is there some that, what other platforms aside from those two that you usually use?
Those are the biggest ones that we use, but there are so many, and there's, and like I said, we can piggyback from anyone, we can piggyback from Alaska. It could literally be anywhere in the country, especially if it's a commodity-based thing, it doesn't matter where it's coming from if it's shipping to us. So, there's a lot of state-specific ones, like tips and buy board that are from like Texas and different parts of the country. But we're pretty much, our town has given us kind of the go ahead to use whatever's available, whatever resources we have. We're not restricted to utilize any of those.
You have any question, Mr.?
Yeah, do you also use the Florida Sheriff Association?
Yeah, we use those for safety. So one of my commodities is PD, police department. So they use Broward County and so we use all.
Definitely recommended to check out their websites too, because if you get a contract with them, imagine all the people that will want to piggyback off that. Yes?
Could you spell those two platforms you were just talking about?
Yes.
Sourcewell,
Okay, I'm sorry, yes, I got that, the other one.
and with Omnia, OMNIA.
Okay, thank you very much.
Does anybody have any other questions in regards to piggybacks or co-op? That's another word that we use, co-op contracts. Anybody in the chat?
Okay. So a couple of terms we have economic, which is best value through competition, best value for the dollar spent, public funds. Equitable, fair and equitable contracting opportunities for vendors, qualified vendors have access to municipal markets. And then transparent, public confidence, improved ethical conduct, maximum disclosure, benefits to the public. So, yeah, we always use economic, equitable, transparent, fair. Those are a lot of the things that we use. Anybody have any questions so far before we continue on? And then this is our Town of Davie Procurement Division. All the contact information, you can email, we have a general email, which is procurement@davie-fl.gov, and that will go to all of us. For bid inquiry emails, bids@davie-fl.gov. Then we have our address, and then we have all the departments, which is really tiny to read on there.
But what you could do is, again, this little snapshot is from the procurement homepage. So again, like I mentioned, that's your hub where to find all the information. So there's a contact us tab, and you can actually see everyone in our division and see what departments they have. So again, if you have any questions in regards to PD or fire, you would be able to see that Gary is the one that handles those vendors. You could contact him. Again, you could reach out to our general mailbox, but if you kind of have an idea on what you're looking for department-wise, it's always best to contact that person directly. Does anybody have any other questions at this time? Yes?
Does the procurement department initiate bids, or is it the department that you represent initiate the bids and say, hey, I need background checks, and then they come to the procurement? I'm thinking of, what is the order? Would your HR people come to you first? They say, I need this? Or is the procurement department say, hey, I'm gonna do this for the city and go put out a bid?
So I do HR, so HR is one of my departments. So what would happen is HR would come to us and say, hey, one, either our contract's expiring, which we give them notification 6 months out, and we say, all right, hey, let's start this process now so we can, do our competitive process for the next time. Or they'll say, hey, I need this process, and they'll go to their procurement agent and say, we'd like to solicit this, and then we'd work with them to put out that solicitation.
Okay, so if there is a, say, 3-year contract, the procurement department might be the one 6 months before it ends to then go to the HR and say, hey, guys, we need to start working on this contract ending.
Yes, we have an automatic system that does that 6 months out. They'll get an email saying your contract's expiring. Jenna's actually our contract specialist. She handles all the contracts. So in the system, it's automatically set up 6 months out. If you have a contract that's expiring, an email will go out, notify that department, hey, your contract's expiring, and then they start working with us to start the new competitive process.
Great.
So just to add on to that, either they'll provide us the information, like the specifications on what they're looking for, what they need, and we'll put it together in OpenGov. We'll publicly solicit it in OpenGov, or they'll just look for piggyback, which is usually the first thing that they try to do to avoid the whole procurement line, the whole bidding process. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions? Anything you want to touch on before we conclude?
Well, we pretty much gave you a rundown, which we believe will help you expand your mindset on how to do business with us, what we look for. And again, this is what we look for, but then again, this will also help you do business with other agencies as well, because their process is fairly similar. There are a lot of agencies that use OpenGov. So if you make your free account, you'll be able to find other agencies on there as well. Aside from that, that pretty much concludes our presentation, unless anyone has additional questions. Just to let you know, our procurement manager kind of went to hanging today. So Gary and I did this presentation. He had another meeting, but usually it is here. You guys are always welcome to come to another presentation if you want to, get more information. It typically is the same rundown. We have a trade show coming up this month. The end of the month. It's for BSL. If you guys want to go check it out, check on their website. I'm not sure what the fee is for that, but you could meet some other agencies there as well.
Don't forget, this will be posted online. This whole thing was recorded, so you'll see the presentation, you'll hear all the verbiage. And then also, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us individually or email.
So just to let you guys know, I did try to invite our public works department from there, but everyone's kind of caught up. But like Gary said, send us the information, we'll share it with them. Also on our town website, but we do have Chad here from our parks department. He's one of our other larger companies, larger departments. So if you would like to say anything, Chad?
Yes, I wanted to say thanks for coming, but they do an amazing job. Jeff and I always say, just to get everything we can, best possible, safely. You guys help us out on a daily basis, and I wanted to meet with anybody that was interested in providing services to Parks and Recreation. I'd like to get some information from you if you have it. I just want to say thank you to them. They do an amazing job helping us and making sure we meet all the procurement.
Yeah, just to inform you guys, our departments, they just say, yeah, send it to send it to procurement, send it to procurement, and we actually are very prideful with what we do. And as Gary mentioned earlier, we have our awards to show you that we follow the policies, procedures. And again, if you have any questions, you can feel free to come talk to us directly, and that pretty much concludes our. If you have